Ladies and gentlemen, since I speak the language Clintonian and liberal and the very bizarre form of communication called Democratic Party, I can tell you right now that the New York Times has endorsed the concept of Clinton 2020. This article, the real reason Biden is ahead of Trump, he's a man. We'll get to that in a second. It's absurd. Okay, written by a really great journalist that disagrees. I disagree with him on almost everything. But I'm sure he would disagree with me if he knew who I was. But, okay, Biden is not up 15 points. This is absurd. Clinton was never going to win Arizona. The polls, here we'll speak slowly so Democrats can comprehend this. The polls were never accurate pertaining to Clinton winning Texas. Hillary Clinton's going to be nominee again in 2020. The fact that she'll lose again is completely irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. It's a political machine, like Tammany Hall, Boss Tweed. They cheated Bernie Sanders in 2016. What makes anyone think the pledged delegates and superdelegates aren't going to switch when it comes time to switch? But the whole thing is a charade. The entire thing is a charade. I'm the only person telling you what's really happening. Now look, Clinton was never going to win Arizona or North Carolina or Texas. Those polls, those state polls in 2016 were dreadfully, they were horrendous. They were dreadfully off. Okay. There were polls that said that Trump wouldn't even be GOP nominee. NPR quoted me below. It's in the pinned comment. I stated Clinton was unelectable and would lose swing states. In 2015, I said this. 538, in the same paragraph that NPR quoted me in, they also quoted 538. And they said Trump wouldn't even be GOP nominee. That was based on the data-driven polls. He became nominee. He's going for 8 years. He's going to be reelected. The polls are worthless at this point. They're Democratic Party public relations press releases. The polls are, and the only reason Clinton got the popular vote is because she outspent Trump 2-1, and Gary Johnson took 4.5 million votes away. If Jill Stein took 4.5 million votes away, and Trump outspent Clinton 2-1, he would have gotten the popular vote. You see how that works, Democrats? Anyway, because you can add Jill Stein to Clinton's total and add Gary Johnson to Trump's total, Trump still wins the popular vote if you do that. But here, why are they running this? They're running, by the way, subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel. I have a great segment today on there. To my new Patreons, thank you. Thank you. You help me do what I do, and you help support this channel. If you enjoy my work on this channel, H.A. Goodman's other channel, your Patreon support really helps a great deal. Allows me to do what I do, so I appreciate that tremendously. Also, check out my live streams this evening. They're always fun. The real reason Biden is ahead of Trump, he's a man. It's a lot easier to run a cautious, inoffensive campaign when you're not up against a culture of misogyny. Okay. Very great journalist. The article is completely absurd. Why? Biden is not running a cautious, inoffensive campaign. He's not running a campaign. He's nowhere to be found. He's not running a campaign. Okay, nobody cares enough. They could actually, like I always say this, they could find a crocodile and put a top hat on a crocodile. They despise Trump so much that they could say, they'll say, oh, well, this crocodile is polling better than Trump. That's how horrible he is. That's how despicable he is. Their contempt for Trump has convinced them that the same polls that were dreadfully wrong in 2016 are suddenly accurate. Nobody cares enough about Biden to really see if he's running an inoffensive campaign or well, how is it inoffensive when he goes to Charlemagne and said if you have a problem with voting for either me or Trump, then you ain't black. That's extremely offensive, but it's swept under the rug. Then he called somebody a lying, dog-faced person. That was just swept under the rug. Then he made an offensive, kind of absurd, lame, like he told that story about defeating cornflakes. That was viewed as out of touch, which nobody knows exactly what he meant by that. He's been very offensive during this whatever it is, this charade. Okay, no, Bill de Blasio was never going to become president. Sorry to burst anyone's bubble on the left. Neither was Eric Swalwell. Neither was Beto O'Rourke. The whole thing has been a charade, and when it happens, I will have made the biggest political call of all time. But this is their way of saying, well, we can have a better society if only we do away with the... So here, I'll just read. A narrative has formed around the Trump, around this culture of, just deciding to move away from a person like Clinton and pick Biden. That's the real subliminal. The left projects all the time. They're the ones who always engage in the below the radar dog whistling and subliminal messages. But here, a narrative has formed around the presidential race. Donald Trump is losing because he's botched the current crisis. Trump is not losing. Trump has an advantage in terms of enthusiasm. Within those polls, you can within the public relations nonsense, you can see why these polls are not accurate. You can't be losing to somebody that doesn't have enthusiasm. President Trump, in terms of enthusiasm, has 30 to 40%, 25 to 35% more people who say they're extremely enthusiastic. People understand there was record low unemployment before the pandemic, and even there was this CNN poll a while back that said he was down, that Trump was down 14 to Biden. Within that poll, 16% of independents chose Trump on the economy, something around there. So it's like people are going to vote their pocketbook. The response to the pandemic. The media is trying to paint Trump as the person who basically brought in this pandemic. That's the response. People are going to look at their governors. 5 states, according to the New York Times, 4 to 5 states have over half of the cases and over half of all the lives lost. This is a fact. They are doing the same thing when they lose again, because they're going to lose to Trump again. He's going to go 8 years. New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. God bless the people of those states. All Democratic governors. Generally, New York, New Jersey, Michigan. Well, New York and New Jersey are Democratic-run machines. Michigan also. And Pennsylvania, great many Democrats. Obviously, Illinois, Democratic-run machine. But New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Illinois. 5 states. Over half of the lives lost in the pandemic. Over half of the cases. So that's Trump's fault? No, it's not Trump's fault. No, it's not. And anyway, they're like, oh, we're yearning for leadership. They don't listen to him anyway. You have the governor of New York said on March 1st, the risk remains low for the people of New York. There's no reason for undue anxiety. Well, okay. The state leads the entire world in cases and lives lost. But here... leads the entire world in the suffering from this. But here, a narrative has formed around the presidential race. Donald Trump is losing because he's botched the current crisis. Americans are desperate for competence and compassion. No, they're not desperate for competence and compassion. They don't view Biden as compassionate. Tara Reade, it's funny, the duplicity. Tara Reade accused Biden of the most horrendous act. Nobody believes it, or they do believe it, but they're still voting for Biden. Trump talked about it, was never accused of that specific act. You talk about the hypocrisy of Democrats. And they obsess over that. They think it's like a deposition. Tara Reade actually, and where's Tara Reade now? They've completely erased her from history. But they didn't do so with Kavanaugh. But here, for progressives, it's a satisfying storyline in which Americans finally see Mr. Trump for the inept charlatan he truly is. So this is a progressive writing this. Notice the complete disregard for President Trump signing a deal to get us out of Afghanistan, America's longest-running military conflict and counterinsurgency war conflict ever. Only President Trump would have signed that deal to get us out of that region of the world, to bring American soldiers home to their families, to their husbands, their wives, their fathers, their mothers, their sons, and their daughters. But see, the left does not care. Do you understand? The American left does not care if American soldiers are stationed anywhere in the world in regions of conflict, military conflict, where they're being attacked indefinitely, forever. The American left does not care. You can bring up buzzwords like empire or military budget. You can go slash the military budget. Bernie Sanders wants to slash the military budget. Has he said bring home American soldiers to their families? No, he hasn't said that. Because that would get the Lincoln Project upset. And that would get the Democratic Party establishment, people who can, well, the Democratic Party is run by Bill and Hillary, but the establishment, the foreign policy of the Democratic Party is run by people like Bill Kristol and Max Boot, who were former Bush-era neoconservatives. So notice though, so President Trump signed a deal to get us out of America's longest-running military conflict in February. The left doesn't care. They don't even know about it. Just signed an executive order lowering prescription drug prices. I don't want to sneeze. Just signed an order lowering prescription drug prices, executive order. First president to sign an executive order combating anti-Semitism, which is running rampant on college campuses. Notice the author, gave more money. Trump's administration allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than President Obama's did the first 4 years. The author doesn't know, or perhaps does. So he's an inept charlatan, but notice this is the American left. He's an inept charlatan, but the fact is, President Trump just signed legislation in December of 2019, renewing and expanding funding for historically black colleges and universities, and within Trump's first 4 years, he has allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than President Obama. Left doesn't care. President Trump signed the First Step Act. Left doesn't care. Prison reform legislation, which is addressing certain systemic issues within the justice system. Democrats don't care. We had record low unemployment. He's still an inept charlatan. Do you understand? There's nothing good that he could have ever done. Similarly, there's nothing that he could do to where Democrats don't say he's a racist, but there's nothing that Biden can do for them to admit that he's a racist for the things that he said. No, there's nothing worse when that statement to Charlemagne, and then he said, "Oh, well, he was acting like a wise guy." Nobody picks up on any of these things. But here, we can continue. So any good thing that President Trump has accomplished has been swept under the rug, erased from history. He's just an inept charlatan. He's so inept. Because the media's apoplectic, seething, fuming, hysterical, maniacal, fanatical coverage of Trump, that's the reality. When they lose again, they have nobody to blame but themselves. But it's also at best half true. The administration's mismanagement of the pandemic and the protests, mismanagement of the administration cannot tell governors how to manage their states, but whatever. There's another more disquieting explanation. He's running against a man. He's running against an exhumed body named Biden. He's running against a cadaver that got Botox and plastic surgery. He's running against a person so boring that paint watches him dry. The evidence that Mr. Trump's electoral woes stem as much from the gender of his opponent as from his own failures, begins with the net approval ratings. The percent of Americans who view him favorable minus the person. Okay, right now that figure stands at 15%. I think it's better than in 2016. That makes Mr. Trump less popular than he was this spring. Yeah, gee, you think the apoplectic media coverage has anything to do with it? You think 30 million people being unemployed, mainly because of our reaction to the pandemic? Like, Democratic, well, whatever. But he's still more popular than he was throughout 2016. Yeah, yet he won. What's changed radically over the past 4 years isn't Americans' perception of Mr. Trump. It's their perception of his opponent. No! Here you have, this is interesting. A major driver in the, this is the best. Okay, this is the best part. A major driver in the public's extreme dislike of Mrs. Clinton was its perception of her as duplicitous. Not that she is duplicitous. The perception! Oh, the perception! Don't you understand? No. Okay, you're talking about somebody who had servers, private servers to hide communication. It's not that difficult to understand. Okay, to hide communication and top secret intelligence on those servers. Never had a State Department email address, ever. The reason is because there were many reasons to hide communication. That's the duplicity. You don't say that it's for convenience when the real reason is to simply hide your communication. And then you had top secret intelligence and classified data. This is according to James Comey. And then James Comey says, gosh, there's no real intent. Then a week before, he writes the Comey letter, further adding to suspicions of possible duplicity. Then you have, this is the left, $10 billion raised in Haiti by both Clintons, and only 3% of the money given to the people of Haiti. I interviewed Haitian-born journalist Daddy Cherry in the Huffington Post. She stated about 3% of the money of around $9.5 billion raised by Clinton Foundation subsidiary organizations. And so, where is that money? But again, that little bit of duplicity, the 3 a.m. ad against. Who do you think started the birther myth? It was bad when President Trump was utilizing it. It's worse, in my view, when Clinton started it by spreading a photo of President Obama in African attire in the 2008 campaign. Clinton started that myth. There are journalists who've stated, yeah, it started in 2008. She ran a very duplicitous, very racist 3 a.m. ad, painting President Obama as trying to break into a house. This is right before the Southern primary. The 3 a.m. ad was like, only Democrats get away with everything. So you have the duplicitous, like, voting alongside Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld, and then saying that we came, we saw, he perished. The tragedy in Libya that Clinton pushed. That was the worst military decision, a NATO intervention that obliterated a country that Clinton and Biden and President Obama pushed. And there are now people being bought and sold in Libya. So tell me more about, there's a possibility that people think she's duplicitous. They don't care. The left doesn't care. Do you understand? According to fact checkers, these public perceptions were wildly incorrect. PolitiFact, a project, rates the veracity of politicians' assertions. According to this calculation, which are based on hundreds of individual statements, Mrs. Clinton isn't only far more honest than Mr. Trump, she's also more honest than Mr. Biden. But that has nothing to do with the biggest. First of all, these fact-checking sites are biased in terms of any puffery or hyperbole. It's an absolute, when the New York Times or the Washington Post, Trump is like 20,000 times, 25,000, 16,000, 17,000, 20, 30,000 times. They don't use the same standard by which they judge President Obama, because he would have lied about Flint water. President Obama drank Flint water and said he was still safe with a water purifier. That wasn't true. Where were the fact checkers there? It was still poisonous. Clinton never sent and she sent and received information marked classified. She didn't use a server for convenience. Loretta Lynch didn't speak to Bill Clinton about golf, Brexit, and grandchildren. These are all the fact checkers never check the biggest lies and omissions because Democrats know exactly how to manipulate media. So you can't prove that the server was to hide communication. Yeah, that's why you use private servers. Trump never had private servers, but he talked about his campaign rally or his inauguration being the biggest in history or whatever. They're like, oh my God, you lied! So they're very petulant. Left is very petulant. But a fact, if you look at Clinton's score, first of all, they're not rating all of her statements. Okay, because if they did, they're not rating every statement pertaining to the email debacle, email server debacle. If they did, the score would tank. Okay, then statements like, the Bible is her favorite book, these are blatant lies. But again, there's no way to find out that the Bible isn't Mrs. Clinton's favorite book. It does combust into flames when she, holds it in her hand. But there's no way to find out that the Bible isn't Madam Secretary's favorite book. So we can't rate that. Anyway, so the fact check, according to PolitiFact, she's more honest than Trump or Biden. Okay, that's the mentality. So anyway, this whole thing is about how great Clinton is, how bad Trump is, and how, nothing Biden is. This is another way. It's worth remembering that the next time you hear Mr. Biden praised for running a cautious, inoffensive, and largely mistake-free, really? Every time he opens his mouth, from saying that he wants to run for Senate, to those Charlemagne comments, to cornflakes, to we created equal, the deal, or to he wants the cure to be worse than the problem. There's also a great segment where he's actually making a stroking gesture with his hand in a very suggestive and inappropriate manner to a female MSNBC host that nobody picked up on, where even the host was nervously laughing, it was so inappropriate. And Biden was the kind of smiling in a mischievous Tales from the Crypt manner. You're talking, my God almighty. Maybe enough, but it's a lot easier to be inoffensive when you're a man. No, it's a lot easier to get away with everything when you're a Democrat, and Clinton is going to be nominee. Hillary Clinton is the only chance they have. Hillary Clinton is the only chance they have. They have no way to win with Biden. Zero. They despise Trump so much they've convinced themselves of the impossible. That's basically what I've been trying to say the whole time. Give me your thoughts below. Subscribe to H.A. Goodman's other channel. Right now, it's below in the pinned comment. And ladies and gentlemen, my Patreon is below. People, were they right about Clinton winning in a landslide? No. Were they right about Trump working with Russia? No. And that's another thing. Trump is a lot more honest than they claim he is. When he said he never worked with Russia, they're the ones who lied and claimed without evidence that he worked with Russia and that his Trump Jr. meeting is an example. Mueller found nothing because there was nothing. Clinton purchased the dossier. But see, again, it's a political machine that the best candidate they have is Hillary Clinton. They have a chance to win with Clinton just because the left is so messed up and media is so there. This is their last attempt at relevance and credibility and legitimacy. The political paradigm of the left will come crashing down when Trump wins again. They're not going to go with Biden. At least with Clinton, they could say, oh my God, again, there was bias against, oh my God. But they can't say, what are they going to say? People were biased against a cadaver? Oh my God, they didn't like an exhumed body. See, this is really bad. Anyway, give me your thoughts below. This is all charade, people. Even when Clinton today said, oh yeah, we have to elect Biden, that's a charade. That is the biggest charade of all time. She's probably just saying, look, I've tried.
She'll go into the convention, and by the way, like, the convention's going to be virtual. Nobody will see it if it's Biden. The entire planet, people on Mars will tune in when Clinton gets that nomination. So give me your and it's the centennial of the 19th Amendment. So anyway, give me your thoughts below. I'll see you this evening for the live streams. Hillary Clinton's going to be the nominee. She's the only chance they have to win. She has the gravitas, the money. She's able to stand up to Trump in debates. She'll lose again, and I'll make the biggest political call of all time. Give me your thoughts. Thank you.